The poster boys for this trope are the Taliban, would routinely broadcast the abhorrent maltreatment of women within their societies as proof that Muslims are the other.
Muslims don't have a monopoly on this stuff. Other people are doing it, but like you pointed out, the double standard is that Muslims get the lion's share of the blame. It's ironic because they think they're insulting us when they say that we're medieval. I kind of like the medieval era of Islam. It was the golden age of Islam. You're listening to Wise Women with Daisy Khan, where faith rolls up its sleeves as a force for good and where women define the future with wisdom and wonder. I'm Daisy Khan, author, speaker, and a Muslim woman who spent her life wrestling with the messy, miraculous collision of faith and real life. And kindly subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Today, we're dismantling the trope that Muslims are medieval, backward, and somehow incompatible with Western civilization. It's used to exclude Muslims from full participation in American civic and political life. This medieval label isn't just wrong, it's ironic, because this was the era that was actually a beacon of science, philosophy, and innovation for the world. Today, we shatter this myth piece by piece. Okay, so let's dive in with my guest, Arsalan Iftikhar, who's an international human rights lawyer, global media commentator, and author of many books, among them Scapegoats, How Islamophobia Helps Our Enemies and Threatens Our Freedoms. Arsalan is also the founder of themuslimguy.com. He has appeared on so many shows, virtually every major media outlet around the world, including CNN, BBC, NPR, Fox. So, without further ado, welcome, Arsalan.
Assalamu alaikum, Daisy. It is always an honor and pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much. So before we actually dive into the subject at hand, I know that all of us have had this moment in our lives where, we had to pivot from what we were doing. Was there a moment in your life that made you dedicate your life to this work that you're doing, the social work that you're doing, and the books that you're writing?
Yeah, Daisy, I always tell people that September 11th, 2001 was 10 days after my 24th birthday, and I was a second-year law student at Washington University School of Law in St. Louis. And that changed my life forever. Obviously, anyone who remembers September 11th, 2001 knows that it was a global pivot for mankind. The world has never been the same since. And that nearly 25 years now that's passed since then shows that our world is spiraling in a pretty negative trajectory, and we need to correct.
You mean a downward spiral?
Down, yeah, absolutely negative trajectory. Yeah.
So one of the tropes that's been a monkey on many of our backs is this trope of, oh, Muslims are medieval and they can't handle democracy. Their values don't align with American values or Western values. I want you to just explain, what does all of this mean, this medieval Muslim?
Well, Daisy, I mean, it starts with Orientalism in general, several hundred years ago, at a time where, Muslims were helping to invent algebra and create modern anesthesia for the medicine that we know today. It's been this paradigm of sort of a backward shift for Muslims since that time. The poster boys for this trope are the Taliban, would routinely broadcast the abhorrent maltreatment of women within their societies as proof that Muslims are the other, right? Anybody who's not Muslim is peddling these tropes, is trying to show Muslims as the other and therefore dehumanize us. And so the Taliban has become the latest manifestation, sadly, for many of these folks who like to point to Muslims as being as a backward people.
Mm, mm. So is scapegoating Muslims a political strategy, or is it just simply organic fear that people get because they don't know a Muslim?
Islamophobia is generally understood to be bigotry towards Muslims
Mm,
and negative feelings towards Islam.
mm.
It manifests in many different ways. Overt physical hate crimes on one end. It can manifest in sort of draconian legislative policies which target Muslim, Arab, and South Asian communities in the West. We talked about the entire paradigm shift. Things have happened. 2001. 9/11, 2 months later, USA Patriot Act, March 2003, the war in Iraq, war in Afghanistan. We had the Arab Spring in 2012. We had Danish cartoon controversies. We had, Charlie Hebdo. We've had Islamophobic popes, and we had Muslim-friendly popes now, right? Like we are having to deal with things as they come along in the human timeline, right? But we as Muslims have to be adept and agile and nimble enough to be able to counter those messages, right? Most Western audiences actually are more likely to change their mind on a topic when you point out double standards, right? So whenever I go on television, I need to answer the question, but then I need to point out why it's a double standard.
You mentioned the Taliban and ISIS and Al Qaeda, all those people.
Yeah.
Muslims don't have a monopoly on this stuff. Other
No.
people are doing it, but like you pointed out, the double standard is that Muslims get the lion's share of the blame for always, being the scapegoats.
I actually very deliberately chose Scapegoats as the title of my second book because it is a biblical term. It first appears in the book of Leviticus, where a goat is literally has the sins of all of society placed upon its head wrongfully. And the message there in the Old Testament, and the fact that the term scapegoat lives vibrantly well in the year 2025, is that in that timeline of human history, we've always had scapegoats. We've always had quote unquote other people, usually minorities, to place all of the blame for all of society's ills. Just in America alone, you saw the incoming Catholic immigrants being persecuted by the native Protestants in the gangs of New York phenomenon that we saw in the Martin Scorsese film, Japanese Americans in internment camps. We had the Jim Crow era of African American history. The Muslims might be the scapegoats today, and then tomorrow it'll be somebody else. Any kind of scapegoating, allyship is the key, right? Only when somebody from outside the community who is speaking on behalf of the people who are being persecuted or marginalized, that's the only way that we're going to uplift each other, right? We know the saying that the rising tide lifts all boats. That's what allyship can do to challenge scapegoating.
Yeah, yeah. The first step is they're not like us. Then the next is they're dangerous. And the third is you got to remove the threat. And that gave us so many state-sanctioned policies that targeted Muslims. Do you want to say a little something about that?
I wrote 3 books about it, but sure, I can give you a nutshell. So, 2 months after 9/11 happened, in October 2001, the United States Senate passed the USA Patriot Act. Now, that's actually an acronym for the United and Strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct Terrorism Act of 2001. Daisy, I've memorized that
I
act.
did not know that.
For 24 years, I have memorized that acronym. Do you understand that? And the reason that
That's amazing.
but it's to make a point. During my keynote, and I say the entire acronym out loud, and I tell people the reason for that long ass acronym is to prove that it was on the shelf for a very long time, and that people were waiting to be able to find a politically expedient time to pass this piece of legislation. It's 248 pages long. It trumped, no pun intended, 50. That one law trumped 50 federal statutes that were already on the book. That expanded the definition of domestic terrorism so that local police and law enforcement agencies could declare anybody they want to be quote unquote domestic terrorists. So the sheriff of Hennepin County, Minnesota, in 2001 declared college student groups anti-racist action and students against war as quote unquote domestic terrorists under auspices of the USA Patriot Act. At the time, USA Patriot allowed police to come in without a warrant. They could surveil you. They could go through your mail. They went to college registrars, university registrars, and they could get your school records. They would place gag orders on these registrars so the registrars could not even tell their students that they were being spied upon by the FBI, right? That's one law that I just talked about. We got 24 years.
Wow.
We got 24 years of those, right? And so that's why, the work that you and I are doing will never end. And that's why, we need to be able to, create our own, spaceship, to fight on behalf of Muslims. The rise of fascism worldwide, right-wing ethno-nationalism is on the rise. Interesting fact, Daisy, most people don't know this, is that in Poland, Muslims only represent less than 1% of the population. But Daisy, do you know that Muslims are a political topic in 99% of Polish presidential elections? Why is that? Right? We're the literal political football that can be punted all over the world. And as the famous saying goes, when you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu.
Yeah, well, Muslims have always been a wedge issue. Anytime there's elections, we get whipped up and we are like the main story.
So that's a perfect segue to the anti-Sharia legislations that we saw in the United
Mhm.
States in the
Yeah.
2010s. There is a one-man legal organization outfit by the name of SANE, led by David Yerushalmi, who was responsible for floating 13 out of 50 states anti-Sharia legislations, which actually violate the supremacy clause of the Constitution. The supremacy clause of the Constitution says that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So therefore, nothing, including Sharia law, can trump it. But it doesn't matter, right? As long as you create the optics that this is an issue out there. David Yerushalmi actually went on national public radio and admitted that he wasn't even expecting to win any of these state legislatures. He wanted to create the heuristics that this was an issue to get out the voters, and it worked. In the 90s, the American political debate was gay marriage. And since then, it's shifted now to, are you pro-Muslim or anti-Muslim? Not only is Islamophobia real, it's metastasizing all over the world. I say that I've written this in all my books. I say anti-Semitism, global anti-Semitism, and global Islamophobia are two fruits of the same poisonous Abrahamic tree, right? It's both they're both parroted by white supremacists worldwide, who are in fear of the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, and that's why we need to keep talking about it and challenging it forever.
Hmm. Yeah, so since we have all this deep perception that has been kind of manufactured over the years, what are some suggestions that you have to counter this myth that Muslims are either frozen in seventh century or remain medieval? Would it help us to showcase, medieval Muslims playing a real role in preserving and advancing knowledge during Europe's medieval period? Would that be helpful to
I,
remind people?
I don't think people are thinking that deeply, Daisy. It's
Mm,
it's people just being bigoted. Like, I always tell people that if you hear any statement that all blank people are blank, that's probably racist, right? You can't. No group is a monolith anywhere in the world. We have to widen our own lenses, widen our own apertures, to be able to say that we're just human beings. We're
yeah.
all we're imperfect, broken people that are trying to live the best lives that we can.
It's ironic because they think they're insulting us when they say that we're medieval. I kind of like the medieval era of Islam. It was the golden age of Islam.
It was, but
It was when we had, Avicenna, Ibn Sina, who
yeah,
created the canon of medicine, created the standard medical textbooks in Europe that lived on for 600 years that Europeans were using. And my own personal favorite
what's that?
is in 859, a woman named Fatima Al-Fihri, who founded the University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Fez, Morocco, which
Yeah,
is today in the Guinness's Book of World Records as the world's oldest continuously operating degree granting university, established by a woman. It's older than Harvard and Sorbonne and Bologna and every other university. And it's still
and
there. To
and
me, I feel so proud. And I'm like, you know what? There's nothing wrong with calling us medieval.
I'm like,
Yeah.
out of 56 Muslim majority countries on the face of the earth today, do you know that 7 of them have already elected female heads of state? Something
Yeah.
that we as Americans haven't done yet. The world is spinning on its axis very dysfunctionally, much quicker now.
Mm.
Whoa, we're on a spinning wheel. How do we calibrate to find an equilibrium where everyone can live within within some semblance of peace?
Yeah. So since Islam also got tainted because of, 9/11 and got linked so strongly to terrorism, would it be helpful for people to know how Islamic teachings themselves disrupt scapegoating? I mean, people say, oh, they can't handle democracy. The Prophet created the Charter of Medina. I mean, these are real examples from our faith that we can cite as a way of, showing the history. And so, is there anything you would like to add to that or
But
explain?
the global Muslim Ummah today, the Muslim community, 2.5 billion, we are like the foam of the sea. We are vast in number, but we are meaningless in terms of global impact, and we need to change that very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, so you also mentioned that there are these rupture moments, where these incidences that break the stereotyping momentum. Is there a story you remember that successfully dismantled the scapegoating, um, that you can share with your audience?
I mean, is Malala Yousafzai? This was a girl who got shot in the face by the Taliban trying to go to school. Shot in the face. I am a grown ass man. I'm 6'4", 225 pounds. If you shot me in the face, I would call it a day. In her ethnic garb, decided that she was going to get up after getting shot in the face by the Taliban and then dedicate her life to helping girls get an education, especially in her home country, and won the 2014 Nobel Peace Prize, and then kept doing the work.
Yeah, yeah, she pretty much countered the backward medieval narrative by just making certain kinds of choices.
Che Guevara once said that at the risk of sounding absurd, I want to say that the true revolutionary is guided by a profound sense of love. Uh,
Mm.
and that's Che, and that's me, and that's you, and that's a few of us. It's the love. Like we're not doing this for the money, but it's the love of humanity. I'm a part of the resistance, card carrying member, and I always will be. I mean, I'm a human rights lawyer. You tell me any country in the world, I'll tell you what's going on that's wrong there. That
Yeah.
shows we as a human race are broken, and we have a lot of fires to put out around the world, and the fires are growing, and the pails of water are getting fewer and far between, sadly.
I want to share with the audience what I've learned is when anybody is being targeted and you're feeling vulnerable, there is nothing like somebody coming forward and telling you that they have your back.
Yep.
It could just be a word, it could just be a note, it could be a letter. You recall very well that whole community center controversy that I got myself sucked into for 6 months straight. I received so many letters during that time, beautifully handwritten letters. I have two binders full, and of people saying, we care, we understand what you're going through. Some of us have gone through this before you. And the thing that really touched me the most was there was one letter and there was a $5 note in there. And on that was like a post-it note that said, "This is all I have."
Oh, that's
It
sweet.
was a $5, almost like a crumpled note that he must have taken out of his pocket.
Yeah,
It made me literally cry. I
totally.
cried. But those tears were not just, it was tears of relief,
Yeah.
just knowing that somebody cares, that they sent me $5 in an envelope, put a stamp on it, found my address. And I put that $5 bill on my wall and I taped it as a
That's awesome.
reminder. So this is the kind of stuff that makes us that restores our humanity.
I have a cool story for you. So a few years ago, there was a mosque in Pflugerville, Texas, outside of Austin, that was burned to the ground. Arson came and burned it to the ground. So there was a local news crew that was doing a story, and they were reporting from this burned out mosque. I remember towards the end of the 3 minute segment, they're like, in the last 20 seconds, they show this little kid and his mom, and they're like, we'd like to report that 6-year-old Jack Swanson came to the mosque when he heard with his mom that it had been burned down, and he came to give the mosque imam $20 that he had earned doing his chores. And they showed a video, B-roll, of this imam taking $20 from a 6-year-old little kid named Jack Swanson. Well, I was moved, and so I posted to my 100,000 social media followers. I say, if anybody knows this kid Jack Swanson, please send me a message. And within like 15 minutes, I got a DM from a lady, and she's like, they're actually my next door neighbors. I actually know them. And so I got in touch with Jack and Jack's mom. And Jack's mom told me, yeah, when he heard about the mosque being burned down, he was really moved. And so he wanted to go in, and he earned 50 cents per chore. And he had done, 40 chores to get $20. And he wanted to raise up enough money to buy an iPad. That's what she told me. I said, pause right there. I was like, send me your mailing address. I'm going to mail Jack an iPad tomorrow. And so I sent the thing, we got over there overnight. And so she sent me photos of Jack Swanson opening this package, and it said something to the effect, I put a little thing in there, it said, Dear Jack, I thank you for your generous act of kindness. Here is an iPad for you to enjoy. Love the American Muslim community. And he loved it. And so I posted it on my the photograph of Jack like hugging his new iPad, and it went viral. And Jack and I were on CNN headline news.
All right, I want to share a hashtag Love Wins story that's being shared all over Facebook. Last Monday, a small mosque in Pflugerville, Texas, it was vandalized. The entrance was blocked with pieces of torn up Quran and smeared feces. Police classified this as a hate crime, but the community of Pflugerville came together. Pflugerville Supports Our Muslim Neighbors event was organized on Facebook for this past Saturday. They had expected 70 people or so to show up. Instead, about 200 people attended the event, showing the Muslim community they are warmly welcomed. What one little boy did is what's making headlines. You see, the 7-year-old little boy emptied everything in his piggy bank, which was $20, and he donated it to the mosque. His act of kindness was picked up by BuzzFeed and has since gone viral. Joining us now via Skype is that little boy, Jack Swanson, and his mom, Laura, and Arsalan Iftikhar, senior editor for the Islamic Monthly. Thank you guys all for joining us. Laura, I want to start with you. You had a conversation with Jack about what happened. What did you say to him?
When I picked him up from school, he got into the car, and we did our usual "How are you?" And I said, something really awful happened today. I said one of the churches in our town. I said somebody was really mean. I said, you remember how we talked about Paris this weekend? I said, well, some mean people in our town decided to go and smear poop on their church and tear up their version of the Bible. I said, isn't that awful? And he said, oh, Mom, that's horrible. And you tell them in the way that they can understand, but he felt as bad about it as I did, I think.
Yeah, it seems like it. Jack, why'd you give all your money to the people at the mosque?
Because I wanted to help, and people are people, and they should always be treated the same way to each and everyone.
Wow, Jack, you're a very smart little boy for not having many years under your belt. I have to say that I wish a lot of other people out in the world thought the way that you did. Arsalan, you're with us because you returned Jack's kindness with a gift. What was that gift, and why'd you do it?
Well, Yasmin, I saw the video of Jack's kind donation, and it literally brought tears to my eyes. I was kind of like, I'm not crying, you're crying. And so I reached out to my 80,000 Facebook and Twitter followers, and I said, can somebody get me in touch with this family? And I got in touch with Laura, and she and I started talking, and she told me that, he had been saving up, $20, doing 50 cents a chore, things for several months, trying to save up for an Apple iPad so he could film his Lego creations. And so I was like, that's done. And so I sent him an Apple iPad on behalf of the American Muslim community, not only, so he, could, fulfill his creative vision, but also to show that no good deed goes unrewarded. I think in America today, we have to stand up for one another as allies, and that, an attack on any house of worship is an attack on all houses of worship. And so whether it's a church, synagogue, mosque, Hindu temple, Sikh Gurdwara, Buddhist temple, we all have to stand up for one another. And Jack is literally the coolest 7-year-old kid that I've ever known in my life. So
Yeah,
thank you, Jack.
I think I can agree with you on that, Arsalan. Jack, how'd you feel when you got that iPad?
I felt super, super excited when I got it because I've been saving up for it for about a year.
Wow. You were saving up for a year, but you still gave your money to that mosque. That is so incredible. Mom, I want to ask you one last question. What is your message to people who don't necessarily have an understanding of Islam in this country and around the world?
Well, I think that no matter what your faith or your moral background, that the best tool that you have is your testimony. If you want people to hear what you have to say, be the kind of person that other people want to listen to. Be kind, be patient. And if you have a doubt as to what you need to do, ask a child, because they generally lead with their heart. So, I mean, they won't steer you wrong.
Yeah, and they're always very honest. Jack, thanks you for being such an amazing little boy. Laura, thank you for being what seems to be an amazing mother. And Arsalan, thanks for being a voice of a community that sometimes does not have it.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. I mean,
he was also, the kid is the coolest kid ever, but it also shows how one small act of generosity, authentic kindness, is rewarded, right? Paying it forward, like, if you do good things into the world, good things will, God willing, happen to you in return. But you have to have that generosity of spirit.
And it's that drop in the pebble in the pond, that's what's needed today. We have to put a lot of pebbles in the pond.
That's all I've been doing in Daisy for 25 years.
Just keep throwing.
We're being talked about in this, but it's not our people talking about us in this. We need watchdog organizations protecting the interests of the global Muslim community. Amplifying these stories, like the ones that you and I highlighted, in short vignettes, like short 2 minutes, like not 35-minute podcasts.
You have to tell your own story, because if you don't tell your story, the narrative is written by somebody else. The good news is that we are seeing a little shift.
We are.
In Netflix series and in Hollywood, there's some consciousness there that things have to change. But I wanted to ask you, because you just told the most impactful story. Really, thank you for sharing that. But also there is well-intentioned ally behavior, where they ignore Muslim agency, or it's like pity advocacy. Is that something that you have experienced?
Well, I mean, it's a reality that's been there. Sufficing it to say that, it's majority minority, dynamics. When the majority is dictating, that we'll give you a piece of our pie, but we'll give it to you if you dance our jig, right? We'll give it to you if it's particularly in a narrow vision of things that we want to promote. As long as they're the gatekeepers to our finances and operations, we're gonna not get to be our authentic selves.
So I just want to, you to close with, what would you say to somebody who genuinely, doesn't have access to the kind of content that you want to create, or knows a Muslim who really genuinely believes that somehow Islam is incompatible with American values and democracy? What would you say to them? How would you explain it to them?
Well, I mean, if I was able to get to them, then obviously I'd be able to influence them. But ostensibly, just because a person holds a bigoted or racist belief, that doesn't change the reality of the world that we live in today. What we need to do is we need to be able to create connections. We're losing the messaging battle, we're losing the content battle, we're losing the political battle worldwide. The stakes are high, and we need to create meaningful change, or we will continue to just be on the menu forever.
So we have a lot of work cut out.
I know that this is the work that we've chosen.
Yeah.
If we don't create institutions that are there for our future generations, we're getting closer to the end. And so it's important for us to make sure that our grandkids have the infrastructure in place, so that there's going to be people there that are going to be their watchdogs while they sleep.
Yeah, well, so I want to thank the listeners and let them know that every Muslim professional, whether it's a doctor, lawyer, or anybody serving the public or in the military, every scientific breakthrough by Muslim innovators completely shatters this narrative. So here are 3 things that you can do in your own capacity. Spot scapegoating wherever you see it and sabotage its spread, whether it's online. And the only thing medieval here is the mindset that judges all Muslims by outdated stereotypes instead of the present day reality or who they really are. And support any group of Muslims or non-Muslims who are preventing the spread of these pernicious ideas. And let's not get stuck in the past. Let's actively build a glorious future for us all. I want to thank you, Arsalan, for being an incredible guest here today. And I'll give you the last word.
I want to thank you, Daisy Khan, for keeping these conversations going. This is something that is sadly a thankless task, promoting understanding amongst the human race. But I want to thank you for your contributions to that, and I look forward to our work together in the future, inshallah.
Thank you so much, Arsalan. Until next time, stay wise and look forward to the next episode with you. Thank you for joining me on Wise Women. If something stirred in you today, don't let it stop here. Share this episode with someone who needs it. Reflect on what resonated for you, and definitely plant one seed of change, however small. Remember, you do matter, and your actions have a ripple effect. But none of us can rise alone. To explore more resources and ways to get involved, do visit my website, daisycon.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, because every click is your way of amplifying this message to others. Wisdom isn't just heard, my friends, it's lived. So let's live it. Until next time, stay wise and stay rooted.